Shocking news out of Belarus. A state television station claims to have exposed a network of radio-hobbyist spies. 7 are now in custody, and their charges are ones that could leave them facing life imprisonment or possibly death. Let's talk about what's going on here. Now, this story is a little confusing. I'm going to try and be objective in the front part of this just to get all the facts out there to the best of my ability. Keep in mind, I am working off of translations from Belarusian in their local blogs and news stories. And this is obviously a very complicated political environment, one that I'm not very familiar with. So keep that in mind. State Television, or STV, one of the channels that's in Belarus, aired a story recently about the liquidation of this radio-hobbyist spies. The host of the show is Roman Protasevich. Now, Protasevich has a history of being an anti-government political activist. And in fact, there's notes on his Wikipedia page where he spent time in detention by the Belarusian authorities and was forced to provide details in the form of a confession. It looked like they were forced. But then later, the president of Belarus claimed that he was actually a KGB spy. And if you're not aware, the president of Belarus is Alexander Lukashenko. Now, I did look up kind of what's the story with this STV, and I'm just saying S television, but it's a much longer name. Under State Media Monitor, which I'm not saying is an authority or anything like that, but it mentions that a lot of their programming is Belarusian content or, created, but then there is significant amount of Russian content as well. And that STV functions less as an independent broadcaster and more as a propaganda channel for state policy. So think of this as almost the mouthpiece of the state. If you lived in a country like that, then you know what I'm talking about. So the claim here is that there were 50 or so amateur radio operators that are under investigation or held. 7 of them confirmed as the most key of the participants, and 3 have been released with their names. And those names are attached to call signs. We know this because there was actually a very nice Reddit post about this story, and I will try to put links for all of this in the video description so you can follow along as well. This story was presented by EU1AEY, who is a part of some of the interviews once this story broke. He was brought in for some kind of a background and thoughts on what was going on. Now, during the report, Protasevich alleged that the 50 people were held, 500 pieces of radio equipment seized, no distinction on whether that's amateur radio equipment, commercial equipment, CB radios. We don't really know all the details, but there is an image, albeit a poor one, we're going to show a little bit later. And about 66,000 recordings of, as they quote, intercepted communications. I will be talking about that later because that's one of my key questions. Now, scariest of all for the people that are held, particularly these key participants, is that under Article 356 and Article 358 for espionage, they could face life in prison and the death penalty. But then towards the end, Protasevich is quoted as, according to the KGB, a clandestine structure created with external support was identified and neutralized. Its ultimate goal went far beyond simple curiosity. It was about gaining the ability to influence critically important facilities. The focus of this network included key military sites, airfields, and air defense positions, security agencies, from the Ministry of Defense and the Internal Ministry to the Presidential Security Service, and ensuring the security of the country's top leadership, including detailed routes of movement. Now, we're obviously dealing with some translations here. I hope most of that is exactly what was said. There are some curiosities about the function of how they were able to get this information and what they used it for, or how they could influence unduly the government, the authorities, and whatnot. But the propagandists claimed the network was disguised as a community of radio enthusiasts, while in reality allegedly functioning as a system of illegal interception using specialized equipment to access closed channels. So I'm thinking encryption in my head when I read that. In the report, they showed 2 of the identified men that were being held as Andrei Repeti and Nikita Krasko. And they're quoted as saying, "I installed an antenna on the roof and could calmly hear the entire city. The Presidential Security Service used control points, and by them you could understand where the motorcade was going." That implies to me that that might have been in the clear meaning no encryption, or they had access to the encrypted keys and the capability with the right equipment to de-encode them. Another individual, Vyacheslav Benko, I'm not sure if that's a title that comes after it, said that they recorded information supporting operational search activities, but particular interest was focused on the protection of the country's top officials, because all this data was digitized in real time and uploaded to open internet access. This step became the point of no return. The network's participants voluntarily lost control over what they had collected, turning local eavesdropping into a remote tool for external operators. The way that is written, and again, we are dealing with a translation, it starts to sound like this was potentially a SDR, a web SDR of some kind that was being broadcast to the internet that anyone was able to listen to. That is maybe an important note, but we don't know that factually. This is just me reading between the lines through the translation. Further in the story, Protasevich said they searched for and recorded ciphers, call signs, and technical parameters of closed departmental channels. There is no longer a hobby. It is the collection of intelligence. As one of the detainees admits, the data obtained, including military communications near the border, was passed on further to the internet, where, in his words, it could be listened to by interested structures. So again, live streaming, Kiwi SDR, web SDR type technologies possible. And there is a part of the story where Krosko, one of the detainees, says, "I thought I was smarter than everyone else. Specifically, I was listening to these prohibited," and then cut himself off and corrected, "closed communications for foreign intelligence services." Protasevich says as part of the investigation, they unequivocally confirmed that the seized materials include information constituting state secrets protected by law. And again, I don't know Belarus very well, and I don't know what their laws are, so if that's the claim, that's what is being said on this article. Now, for me, a key part of this story is the claim of the 500 pieces of radio technology that was collected. And this is the only image we have. This is possibly a still from the broadcast. I am unsure, but this is not a very good image. And from it, I can really only make out a couple of handhelds, and it looks like some other boxes, possibly radios. I'll let you eagle-eyed folks in the chat see if you can do better. But if I blow this up any bigger, it's going to be a nightmare to try and figure out. So again, link is in the video description. Go check it out yourself. Now, how I heard about this story was from many of you who reached out and linked me to it. Thank you, by the way, for telling me about it, of a post over on r/amateur radio. And it was posted by Sergey, EU1AEY. And he goes into some detail talking about some of the history that radio amateurs have dealt with in Belarus, and you can read that. Again, it is linked in the video description. But there are a couple of points I wanted to talk about. The detained men were paraded on state television like war criminals and were coerced to publicly repent for the crime of technical curiosity. Propagandists presented the Belarusian Federation of Radio Amateurs and Sportsmen as a front for a massive spy network. In a staggering display of technical ignorance, state propaganda unironically claimed that these men were pumping state secrets out of the air, using nothing more than a basic $25 Baofeng handheld and consumer-grade SDR dongles. Any operator knows that the hardware like this is physically incapable of cracking the modern AES-256 digital encryption used by government security forces. It is technical fraud, yet they're being charged with high treason and espionage. The punishment in Belarus for these charges is life imprisonment or the death penalty. Now, comments abound in this post, and you should read them all, but Mayday all day dialed into exactly the curiosity I have, is that I strongly suspect there is something real behind this story, and that something was most likely them listening to frequencies they weren't supposed to. Okay. We'll talk more about listening to frequencies you're not supposed to, but let's carry on. They probably really did use the radios to listen in on some government and or military frequencies out of curiosity, like a lot of radio amateurs do. Assuming that Belarusian authorities still use analog or unencrypted DMR Tetra P25, you can hear all kinds of interesting stuff. And if you're careless enough to talk about it in the wrong people or record it, what you hear and store or upload it somewhere, then you're in trouble. Sergey replied, "If you check the links, I've noted that the problem isn't the radio amateurs, it's the fact that the security agencies are using the absolute cheapest analog radios that blast their traffic across amateur bands." The concern here by Sergey continues, saying that the kicker in this story is there's nothing stopping the military from simply claiming you were listening solely because your equipment is capable of hitting those frequencies. assuming, again, what he said earlier, that they're transmitting in the clear. Do you see the trap? It's a total presumption of guilt. Again, this is Sergei's quotes that I am reading to you. Which leads to some information that I found out about those that are being detained on another website, and I apologize again for the translation service. But of the 3 that were detained, Nikita, Andrei, and Vyacheslav, they seem like relatively normal individuals that you'd find on the internet. Nikita, in particular, has a TikTok account. Andrei's a 50-year-old, worked in a private company selling car parts. Not much is online about him. But Vyacheslav has a social media page that unfortunately I can't pull up with the translator that claims that the individual is a person with a family and children, is interested in traveling, and has listed himself as an individual entrepreneur. Part of this same article, Sergei is back in as a 20-year experienced ham and a scientist, again, EU1AEY, and explains what the issue he believes is going on, and I quote, "In the second half of the 21st century, radio communication is ubiquitous. Only the waves change, and for radio amateurs, it is an open book. In Belarus, they simply wanted to destroy this movement which officially exists. The detainees had official papers that allowed them to do this, to keep the equipment. There was a difficult exam with hundreds of technical questions. It turned out that the security forces, Lukashenko's security guards, were poorly educated savages who bought cheap junk and talked through it. And these guys are only guilty of getting into these negotiations at the expense of their receiver's regulator. It turned out that their radio airwaves are a whole that a specialist can read like an open book. Nothing is encrypted, as the scientist notes," and that is Sergei. Now, I appreciate, again, translations, probably not exactly how he said it, but he's drawing a point that it sounds like the security officials in Lukashenko's group and the military, possibly the authorities, whomever, there's probably different radios that are involved in different communications, and they're relatively in the open. There's not much, if any, encryptions being done, or what they were sold as encrypted radios is poorly implemented. And Sergei continues, "The detainees simply had intelligence and technical knowledge. They had equipment and understood it. Now amateurs often use very cheap SDR receivers, which allow them to analyze the airwaves on a computer. This is legal equipment for spotting, weather radios, SATCOM, communication satellites, and amateur radio DX communication. But according to the logic of the state, the blame lies not with some representatives of the authorities who appropriated money to build a state communication system and built it in such a bad way, but with radio amateurs who simply love the hobby and came across this connection. In a normal country, these radio amateurs would be immediately put in place of those who organize such a connection." That's probably true. Now, this is an evolving story. It's only been a couple of days since we first heard about it. Sergei is on the r/amateur radio post. If you have questions, you probably should bring them to his attention, and you'll probably get a much better answer. Again, appreciate you guys commenting below as well, and I will try to do some more information, follow up with a lot of these things as things progress, as they inevitably will. Now, I want to speculate a little bit, and this will be my editorializing. There's 2 key areas of this story that I question and concern me. The first is the recovered recordings. The second is, were these online available SDRs? I appreciate the translations were a little bit difficult to kind of put together if these were just online, like a Kiwi SDR or a web SDR. Or was this something that was like just a private connection that people could remote into? And was it a public connection? Could anyone connect to it? And the reason I asked for that, you're thinking like, Josh, what's the big deal? Keep in mind, in the United States, we can do this, right? We can just put up a radio station, a Kiwi SDR, and we can make it public. We can connect it to a map internationally to many other SDRs that are available. And many other countries and people there have the same capabilities. But in countries like Belarus, that may not be legal. I'm tiptoeing around something that I don't really know the facts on or what the laws are pertaining to Belarus, but it is entirely possible that the authorities looked at this online SDR, if that's the case, as something that could violate their security, or at least the lack of security that they have, meaning that they're in the clear radios would be receivable or used by operatives from even outside the country, right? Think of every country that Belarus may not like and their intelligent organizations to be able to just live go to an SDR receiver and tune around to whatever they want. The authorities of Belarus probably don't like that idea at all, and I bet that's partially what's going on here. The recordings would be concerning as well to, again, someone in the Belarus authorities. I'm not defending this, by the way. I'm just saying this is what it seems like draws the biggest ire in this situation. Now, this could all be just a complete lie, and that there were no recordings, and that these SDRs were simply just for personal use, and they had the ability to remote into them from, say, the roof of their house on a Raspberry Pi to their computer that they had a Wi-Fi connection to. That's completely reasonable too. And if we take Sergei's commentary on these folks that are in the authorities don't really understand this technology, they don't have a good operating capability of how radios work, then yeah, they could all look like scary black magic to them. And for everybody watching, I'll leave you with this. And it's important to understand that when we talk about people in other countries, amateur radio operators in other countries, they have different rules that they have to abide by when it comes to what they can listen to. Hopefully, they can listen to everything in their band space and operate with us on the air without issue. But pointing that same receiver, which might have wide-banded capability, to another frequency set could be illegal, or something that is looked upon like, we got to investigate this further in the eyes of the authorities. I don't know if that's the case in Belarus, but I can tell you here in the United States, you generally can't get your receivers, at least if you buy one just off the shelf or a brand new amateur radio, to go straight to the frequencies for cellular phone communication. They generally don't want you going into those spaces for various privacy reasons. That's not to say it's the protection of the government securities like it is in this story, but similar things do exist all around the world, and you have to be careful of that as amateur radio operators, that you're not dipping your toe into something that hypothetically you're not doing anything wrong, but if somebody wants to make a news story on you, then you could be part of the evening news and have a lot of undue investigations coming down the pipe at you. At the end of the day, I don't feel like any of these hams did anything wrong other than have curiosity and technical knowledge on how to use these radios. But at the same time, we can see how some of these what I'm calling corrupt authorities can use this to spin any kind of narrative they want, and they seem to be doing that in this case. And sadly, it could affect the lives of what seem like just mild-mannered hams, which always bums me out. But I will leave this to you to sound off in the chat. I will do the best I can to provide all the links that you can go follow this up as well. Sergei seems like he's open and responding to people as they comment over on Reddit. I will say, please, do what the mods are saying on Reddit and don't make this a political bloodbath. Just talk about the facts, talk about what's real, ask questions. Don't twist this into what could be a larger mud-throwing argument and discussion. This is important. We need to get the information out there, so make sure that we keep this pathway open without violating the rules that they have over on r/amateur radio. All right, guys. Again, thank you for watching. Very sad story, but we hope it all ends up well. Likely we're not going to hear much about it for a while, but we'll keep an eye on it here on the Ham Radio Crash Course. Thanks for watching, 73.